This SoonerScoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. If you're ready to see the rest of the world just as clearly, get your fresh perspective at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIX.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. It is Friday and another Around the Corner here on SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. Georgie boy, how are we?
Great. Lots of good college basketball going on right now, so it's been fun to watch that. Heartbreaker. For the OU men's hoops team last night.
Unbelievable. You keep thinking, like, there's no way. It's kind of like football to a certain extent. It's like, there's no way that they could lose in the manner that they did, and then they storm back. You can't say, like, just the entire game I thought was kind of fun. The fight that this team has in terms of just getting down and they keep responding, that was a little bit surprising because I thought there was a couple times where they had finally, got connected with the right punch that was going to knock them down, and they're down by 10 with a minute 26 left, and all of a sudden
I almost turned it off because it was so late at night.
Yeah, sure.
I was like, I'm going to go to bed. I need to, and then I was like, I'll stay up, and then Fears hits that three to cut at the three, and then they get the steal, and then they get the other steal, and boy, Otega Owe. 58 ultimate
or 57
villain.
Combined points against Oklahoma here in the obviously the 2 1-point losses with him making runners at the end. And last night was just incredible the way that thing went down.
Yeah.
We'll get into a lot of your questions from the Crimson Corner. Obviously, good time to join the Crimson Corner. Good time to join SoonerScoop.com with everything that's going on. You've been telling me about the Giovanni Gibson story that you're working on. I think that people are going to be quite pleased out there with him and, obviously his story and getting to Norman. It's going to be kind of fascinating to see. But real quick, before we get into all the questions, it sounds like Oklahoma had a pretty good scrimmage on Thursday.
Yeah, really good scrimmage. No injuries. That's should be
a positive.
That should probably be the lead on that. No injuries out of the scrimmage. But I think that it went really well. John Mateer threw a couple touchdown passes. I think Giovanni Gibson continues to stand out. Jaron Canick, a name that just continues to pop up. So we'll see if that can translate. Defensively, it sounds like the defensive line is a really, really strong unit, which should be no surprise. But yeah, you can check out, my intel from, spring practice on SoonerScoop.com. $1 to sign up right now. So
very good time to join SoonerScoop.com. Obviously, we will have on Sunday selection shows for both the men and the women. The men, despite the loss in Nashville, in the run at the SEC tournament, I think everybody around here still feels rather confident or rather comfortable, I guess, over the next couple of days. Might want to watch a couple of the bid stealers this weekend, but the crazy thing is there's just not a whole lot of them out there right now.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, you would know better than I do.
There's not a whole lot out there. And the games that, or the teams that are technically on the bubble below Oklahoma, whether it be Indiana or a Xavier or teams like that, they're already done out of their tournaments, the Big East tournament and the other one. So what was I saying? Indiana, Big Ten.
Big Ten, yeah.
My apologies to the Big Ten.
And the women, it looks pretty clear they're going to be a 3 seed, I would guess, in the tournament. So find out what
on
teams Sunday
are
evening.
Coming to Norman, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Before we get to your questions, let us tell you about our good friends over at Roback, RHOBACK.com. You got your Roback pullover on today.
Yeah. Roback pullover. I really like it. I think the shirt's Roback too, the polo. So
a company man right here.
Yeah. So I love Roback. I was wearing Roback long before they became a advertiser.
We're happy to have them though here at the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. All you got to do, if you are so inclined, go to Roback.com obviously and use the promo code Sooner20 for 20% off. If you're interested in the everyday shorts or the Delta Performance pants, I know that. I think we could say this, like the colleagues of us that, push some Roback stuff have been talking about the golf shorts, which I'm very interested in to try those on as well. I'm going to have to get a couple pairs.
Yeah, I want to get some joggers. I've heard the joggers are awesome. And I love the hoodie too they have there. I mean, I have a couple of those and I wear those all the time.
Roback.com, RHOBACK.com, promo code Suitor20 for 20% off. All right. Obviously, it was not a fun experience at the end of the game. The comeback was incredible, and the fight throughout was incredible, but Oklahoma falls short again. So I think that's where we'll start. We'll start with some basketball information here with Porter Moser from the member formerly known as Sooner Doc. That was hard to read right there. Hell, give Moser a new arena, $6 million a year in NIL, and see what he could do. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be fantastic.
I'm all for that. And you know, we've talked about this. OU's NIL budget, I think, is somewhere around $3 million, and that's, you know, bottom tier of the SEC. If you could double that and get it to $6 million, think of some of the players you could go get.
Well,
now,
I think it makes everybody's life a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it was $3 million this last year. As we all know, the price tag is going to continue to go up, and so you know, you would assume it's going to, you know, have to go up a little bit anyways. But yeah, I think that would be great. Now, I think Porter's proven, and we've said this on here, he's a good basketball coach. You know, has he missed on some evaluations in the portal? I'm sure. You know, that's certainly happened. Has he, you know, not always been the best in late game situations? Sure. Has he also had just a tough break in some of these losses, especially lately? Like I tweeted it out last night. In the last 7 games, they're 4-3. Those 3 losses are combined 5 points.
Sure.
I mean, it's you know, one of those things where it's just been some heartbreaking stuff.
All right, let's move along. Talking about Porter Moser and the Oklahoma basketball program, we'll go NIL talk here. As NIL at the bottom. Last night, again, ESPN brought up how OU is near the bottom of NIL money for hoops and praising Moser for what he has done with limited resources. I think OU will up the amount of money this next season to compete with the middle of the SEC instead of the bottom half. And I mean, yeah, I think that kind of goes back into the conversation that we were having, you know, basically when we had to fire Porter and only to rehire him for the final stretch. But anybody that's in there is going to have the same problems that Porter Moser has from a facility standpoint, perhaps from an administrative standpoint, as well as the NIL, which is quite obvious.
Yeah, certainly. And you can only imagine, again, if you gave him, you know, a few million more dollars to go get some more players, you'd feel really good, or keep players, right? You know, you think about the core that could be back next year. Obviously, Dayton Forsyth is somebody that you'd like to hold on to. I mean, he feels kind of like the future of the program at this point. You know, Mo Wagi has been phenomenal down the stretch the last few weeks with Sam Godwin out. You know, and then you have a couple guys like a Jadon Jones who hasn't even played this year.
That's kind of the interesting portion of it is Jadon Jones, you know, obviously coming in from Long Beach State, had the back issue this year, hasn't played at all. I think the plan is to come back next year, as well as Josh Nwankwo, the kid that PC North, shout out one time. He was supposed to be one of the better players that Oklahoma had this year.
Yeah, I think he was supposed to be kind of like the gem of the portal.
Sure.
And so if you get him back, and then I don't know much about their recruiting class, but it sounds like they're bringing in some big guys.
Yeah, they
that
have
can
a
maybe
6'10"
help
kid
them.
that's coming in that signed.
So you never know. And then you go out and you get a few pieces in the portal. I certainly think that that's the right perspective at this point. Porter has saved his job. Like, they're going to play in the NCAA tournament.
We're past that point, right?
And so I think moving forward, you just say, okay, how can, you know, as a university, how can we help Porter Moser get over that next hump, which is not only making the NCAA tournament, competing at a higher level in the SEC, and then maybe winning some tournament games.
They'll definitely have the opportunity wherever they're headed come Sunday night. And, you know, I think I tweeted it this morning. As much as like the pain of last night, the heartbreak that comes with it, it's kind of what you said with the last 7 games. Even the losses, they have been extremely
They've been in every game.
And they're playing pretty damn good basketball just overall.
And in the SEC, I feel like there's, you know, top 3 or 4 teams, and then there's just a group of like 10 teams that feels like anybody can beat anybody, and Oklahoma's kind of proven that. I mean, they've played with close teams. I mean, they were a shot away from beating Kentucky twice, who's played with just about everybody in the country this year. And then Ole Miss, you know, they lose by, 3 in that game. Ole Miss almost just beat Auburn, who might just go win the national title. So Oklahoma's not that far off, and considering what they have in NIL, it's kind of remarkable.
It was a hot topic of conversation on the unofficial 40 this week. George, have you gone to Lowe's or Home Depot to pick up any power tools here over the last couple of days?
No, Eddie, I haven't. I know that was a huge topic in my life, that I didn't own a power drill, but I'm not sure why I need one when I live in an apartment. You know the apartment life.
I think that it probably goes without saying that anybody that knows my personality or listens to the unofficial 40, I have no interest in doing power tool manly shit like that. Okay, let's go to a couple of the questions, though. Questions/comments from the Crimson Quarter. Westy writes in, George seems like someone who would push a dog in a stroller.
That's actually accurate. I don't know who that person is on the board, but they've probably seen me. My fiance has a dachshund, and that her dachshund cannot make it very far. So we actually do have a stroller for him that we have to push him if we want to go on a walk longer than 2 or 3 miles. You gotta put him in the stroller. So that's actually accurate.
All right. I'm glad that you put out the qualifier there, though. That you're blaming Aaron for everything, but that's okay.
I mean, she had the stroller before I met her, but
okay, that's even more fair.
Yeah. And if you know dachshunds, and a lot of people are going to give me shit in the comments, and that's fine. But if you know dachshunds, they're not walkers. They do not like to walk, but you got to get them some exercise. And we like to walk. So what are we supposed to do? Just leave the dog at home?
I might be more of a Dachshund than the Dachshund himself. Yeah. I don't like to walk at all, but I need to probably. I'm getting fat again. All right, I like George, but someone pull his man card. Donkey kicks for fun. And this is for the power drill thing, right?
Yeah, and which I just I don't understand the hate there. Look, I lived in an apartment the last 10 years of my life now. I've never used a power drill once. I don't need one. And at the same time, people are like, well, why did you rent one? Why didn't you just go buy one? Well, I'm getting married, and so we're putting one on our registry. And so I'm going to get one for free.
Well, here's the thing. And I think that people sometimes forget about this about you. And I'm going to just fully kind of throw out there what we had talked about earlier, just in that he's a private school kid. And he specifically told me that, why do that when I could just hire a poor person to come do it? That's what he said to me.
And what's funny about what Eddie's saying is he supported my idea, that he was on my side. The public school kid, Putnam City North here, was on my side in terms of hiring somebody out to do it.
Well, it's an exclusive Northwest Oklahoma City type of thing. We move along. Suter Oak better put a drill on the wedding registry. I think that we're going to get that taken care of, and I think that Kerry Murdoch's going to be the captain of that ship, and
he's going to
buy that gift. So
thanks, Kerry.
Hopefully, you never need it though. Yeah. It's kind of
probably
one of those
won't.
things.
I probably won't.
I just hire somebody to come over and do it if I need it.
Exactly.
I'm not hanging a whole bunch of stuff on my walls anyways. Yeah. That's probably why I'm single and lonely. All right, here we go. Let's go to another question. We'll come in with that, but first, let us tell you about, and we've told you about him because you know about him. Grab that football, George. It is a first edition here from BigGameUSA.com, the Jordan Brand football. Pretty badass, if you ask me.
It's awesome.
For the first time ever, Jordan Brand's signature innovation, performance, and swagger hitting the turf in Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. This right here is the football that Oklahoma will use in 2025. It's an extremely... How would you describe it in your hand?
I mean, just like a football.
It feels good, though.
The grip is nice. And
the grip,
I like the red laces. That's pretty cool.
Robust is a good word, Kerry. I think that's probably the best way to put it. It is the 2025 official OU Jordan Fly Elite football, and that has just dropped. If you're so interested in it, so inclined that you need it here for the spring, go to BigGameUSA.com/Sooners. Thank you to Big Game Football for being a part as once and always. What? Kind of out of my mind right now. All right, we will continue on. We actually do have a question, and it's somebody that we have talked about at length here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. The great Jaron Kanak making his move to tight end. This from Gabo34. I hope the position change is successful. God knows the tight end room needs some sort of production. 3, 2, 1. Reliability this year. LB was just a big learning curve, and he never felt instinctual there. It'll be a shame if it clicks, and you'll wonder, what if he made that move a year earlier? Talking about Jaron Kanak.
Yeah, I am. It's one of those things where it's like, if he goes out there and just tears it up this year, you're going to be like, why wasn't he playing tight end from the start? Sure. But I understood where, Brent Venables and the staff was coming from in terms of playing him at linebacker. You look at the athleticism and the ability to run side to side and, physical guy. Like, he was a good tackler. But sometimes at linebacker, I think that you have to have great instincts, right? Like Danny Stutzman had great instincts. Kip Lewis. I mean, talk about a guy that, he may not always do the right assignment, but he reads the game as well as anybody, right? He shoots the gap and does all those things. It always felt like Jaron was maybe hesitating a little bit, and
that'll get you beat.
Exactly.
You
and so you can't do that, and you even think back to the Armed Forces Bowl on the 95-yard touchdown run.
Right.
That's Jaron Kanak being about a half second late, right? And so those things can't happen. And, I think Jaron, to his credit, gave it a really good shot, tried his best at it. It didn't work. Now, if he goes and excels at tight end, you'd have to wonder about what it could have been if he was there, the last couple years. But at the same time, I understood the vision. And people forget, in 2023, Jaron Kanak was the starting, I think, Mike linebacker for the first 5 or 6 games and was playing decently well. So, he could probably still be a pretty good linebacker, but maybe he can be an elite tight end that can extend his career professionally.
Outstanding athlete. It's going to be fun to watch. And as you said, you put up some notes from the scrimmage and
scored a touchdown.
And I asked you, it's like, is that a good thing? Is that a good thing about the tight end position overall, or is this an exceptional circumstance that it's like, maybe this does work out?
At this point, any production from the tight end room is a good thing. I think it doesn't matter who it is.
Amen.
If they're catching touchdown passes in the scrimmage, that is a positive.
I feel like I'm at church right now. Amen. I like that. That's exactly right. We move along. This is actually a question that has come up quite a bit on the board, and I know that we've talked about it, I think numerous times here in the office, trying to throw out conspiracies or theories, I guess would probably be the best way to say it. Phantom Samurai 27. This is from the thread on Twitter that you made coming from one of the open viewing portions of practice for the media. And it's talking about players that are hurt, and specifically somebody like an Eli Bowen, I think, in this case. As you see him there, despite being on crutches, and this is not something that is exclusive to just
Eli.
This year. This has been, something
Since
that has
year
happened
one.
since Brent Venables' first year. When you're hurt, you still suit out for practice.
I think and this is just an assumption. We've actually never asked Brent this, and maybe we will this spring. But I think the idea behind it is, okay, if it's not a serious injury where you're going to be out the whole season, you might as well keep your pads on, get used to wearing them. It's kind of almost like a conditioning thing where you still got to wear them and still be a part of, the team.
It's
weird, very
though.
old school. It's an old school mentality, I think, old school football. But I would assume that's the idea is you still want to make sure that, because, Eli Bowen's injury, I know we've said it on other shows and on the board and stuff, but it's not a serious injury. He twisted his ankle pretty good. It's probably going to be out sometime this spring, but it's nothing, long term. Maybe it's one of those things where it's like, hey, just get used to having your pads on. You don't want to, because it is one of those things where it's different when you don't have your pads on all the time, and it's, I don't know. Maybe that's the reasoning behind it. I'm not really sure.
I don't think that Phantom Samurai is the only person that's gone.
Yeah,
why the
we've
heck would you
done
have to
that.
wear-
Every time we
everybody-
go out there, we're like, why are they wearing pads if they're not practicing?
Perhaps it's something that we need to ask Brent about, but we would need time to do that, right?
Yeah, maybe
So we'll see.
maybe in the next couple of weeks we'll get to talk to him.
I was going to say next couple years, but that would mean something's gone right over the last couple, right?
Yeah.
He means he'll still be here. All right, we move along. SEC schedule, certainly something that has been talked about a lot. And I know that Josh Pate had put something out, the great Josh Pate, one of our quick trip brethren, if you will, had put something out talking about the Texas schedule compared to the Oklahoma schedule. We know what Texas went through in 2024 compared to what Oklahoma went through. Obviously, those are about the same schedules this year. Josh McQuestion, interesting. I would never pronounce that incorrectly. Greg Sankey better not pull back for Texas next season. I know they talked swapping schedules after 2 seasons, but I have a feeling he'll come out and say that the schedules need to be more balanced in 2026.
So, from my understanding, and I think Greg Sankey's talked about this, the scheduling, one, it's difficult in the first couple years just because of 2 new teams. But for a long time, the SEC has often done scheduling somewhat based on winning percentages over the last, I think, 5 to 10 years. Oklahoma's winning percentage is much higher than Texas's was over the last 5 to 10 years. And so I believe that is why Oklahoma maybe drew some of the tougher teams.
Interesting.
I believe that's part of it. Now, 2026 is a really interesting case because it could go to a 9-game schedule in conference, which would probably set up the pod system where, every team has 3 teams that they face every year. Oklahoma's would likely be some version of, obviously, Texas. I think Missouri is a lock to be in there. And then I think one of Florida or Arkansas would be the other one.
Interesting. So you don't think that it would be LSU that's been in there?
Oh, I mean, LSU. That's what I meant. Not,
okay. Because I knew that
Arkansas.
LSU has kind of somewhat
Yes.
been that team that I think that for the most part, and at least from people in Baton Rouge, it sounds like they want that to be kind of that Thanksgiving weekend type of rivalry, quote unquote, game.
The betting odds are definitely LSU, Missouri, Texas would be OU's pod. And so it'd be interesting to see what that would look like. I don't know who Texas's would be. It'd probably be OU, A&M, and then some other third team.
All right, we continue on. This is more SEC scheduling stuff because I know this is kind of a hot button issue. Whistle Piggy, I don't even care that they gave us the hardest schedule again this year. I'm just annoyed that it's the exact same SEC schedule as last year. Why join or have a mega conference if we're just going to have the same ducking schedule every ducking year? I mean, shouldn't be surprised by this. I think that was kind of going to be the bit for a while, right?
Yeah, and again, I think
I understand the frustration.
Right. Again, with 16 teams, it's not easy to come up with the equal schedule across the board. And I'll also say, look, at this point, yes, OU schedule looks daunting, and it's going to be difficult. It would be difficult, with any type of schedule in the SEC. You wish you had a Mississippi State or a Vanderbilt on there instead of maybe an Alabama or a Tennessee. But you also have to wait and see. And a lot of the strength of schedule is based off of last season. I look at teams and I say, well, I don't think Ole Miss is going to be as good as they were. We'll see if South Carolina can replicate what they did a year ago. Tennessee, I still think that that's a game Oklahoma can win. I have no idea what to make of Alabama. Texas has a new quarterback, and I think he's going to be really good, but we'll see. So you've got
Eli?
Arch Manning. Oh, okay. All of those teams. Auburn has a lot of turnover. So you never know what the schedule's actually going to turn out to be. Do you wish you had a Kentucky on there or a Mississippi State? Of course, but it is what it is.
Hit it. Another one about the SEC schedule. $1 silver member. This is more about the Texas side of the scheduling. Their schedule is also going to be a lot more difficult next year. Florida, A&M, and Arkansas will all be a lot better, not to mention that we will be one of the most improved teams in the country. We talking about Oklahoma from $1 silver members' perspective. They also have 3 home games and 4 road games instead of 4 and 3. On Oklahoma's, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Mizzou are all probably worse. We go from 3 home games to 4. Ours is still harder, but they have a balanced out a lot. I would agree with the idea of that, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, I think Florida is a team that could be, a sleeper this next year.
I think anybody that saw DJ Lagway at the end of the year and the development and him basically performing to keep Billy Napier's job to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think Florida could be a team that's really good. A&M obviously has a lot of talent. We'll see what happens there. So I think it could certainly flip to where Oklahoma's schedule, again, I don't think it'll be easier than Texas's, but Texas's does look a little bit harder than maybe it was a year ago.
One more comment to get through here from the Josh Pate on Texas joke of an strength of schedule. This is basically a follow-up from $1 silver members posting about the Texas schedule and things balancing out. Far from balanced, it is a lot of conjecture at this point, but Bill Conley at ESPN says OU and Florida have schedules that an average top 5 team would go 9-3 against. That means we would have to be a top 5 caliber team to win 9 games next year. Texas's schedule is nowhere close.
I agree with that. My only pushback would be, isn't Oklahoma supposed to be a top 5 team? Like, isn't that the standard at the University of Oklahoma? I'm not saying that's what they're going to be next year, but if you want to be a top team, a blue blood program competing for a national title, you should be in the top 5 conversation. So if you win 9 games next year, yes, that'd be an incredible feat, and that tells you how difficult their schedule is if you're a top 5 team and you're 9-3. But I would say that's the expectation at OU, right? The expectation is to be in that conversation. So I understand it's a really difficult schedule, but if this team is going to be one of the most improved teams in college football next year, they should win 8, 9, 10 games.
I would also say that is, it's something that you kind of wrote about too when you're talking about the Bill Conley numbers. It's good to have. It's great information, and it's very, kind of informing. But at the same time, it is just a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, it's based on, again, a lot of last season and the success that teams had, transfers that you had coming in. So, it's based on production that guys did a year ago somewhere else, not where they are currently, and as well as recruiting rankings. And you just don't know how some of those guys are going to pan out. You also can't bet on, Ole Miss is ranked extremely high. I just don't know what they're going to look like next year. I mean, they did well in the portal, but we'll see. Missouri's ranked very high in the SP Plus rankings right now, but they lost a lot of guys that were extremely valuable to that football team. So I think it's kind of one of those things where you take it and you acknowledge it and you say, yeah, OU's schedule is really difficult, but until we see these teams actually play on the football field, we don't really know what it's going to look like.
100%. All right, a fun thread to get into here on the Crimson Quarter to kind of close everything out, because it was something that I think for at least my Dibbo hits pretty close to home when you're talking about the the echelon of great Oklahoma basketball players. I was going to say athletes, but it may be more so just the athlete side of the Lloyd Noble Center. But everybody loves Hollis Price. Ben Vasir, I think that's how you would say the last name. He basically, as the thread title can tell you, took a chance and reached out to my favorite OU basketball player as a kid growing up, and here are the results. So he ends up writing a letter to Hollis Price, who's obviously down at Houston right now with Kelvin and Kellen, and I guess Quantas for a little bit before he moves on to Louisiana. I loved watching Hollis Price play when I was a kid. I used to wear his jersey every chance I got in school when it was Jersey Day. I reached out to him to see if he'd sign it for me so I can hang it in a frame, and here's the results. I also wrote him a personal letter, which is why he wrote me one back. As a 36-year-old, I feel like a kid again reading his note. So cool. Just wanted to share this with the corner. Pretty damn cool. And it's kind of one of those things. And there's the handwritten note coming back from Hollis, as well as the signed jersey. Pretty badass, man. Hollis Price for guys, I guess, in their late 30s like me, that was like the peak of OU basketball was those Hollis Price teams at the time.
Man, that's awesome.
Pretty cool.
I think I need to. Maybe I should send one to Blake Griffin. That was I don't know who yours was growing up, because I was a little too young for Hollis Price.
I think I know enough people that we could probably just get you in contact. You don't need to send it to him.
That'd be awesome, though. We should get Blake on the show. But Blake was I feel like when I remember Kevin Bookout. Mm-hmm. That was one of the first.
Bookout was a king for sure.
Yeah, that was one of the first players I remember for OU hoops. But Blake Griffin and those teams, I think I was like, in middle school.
Sure.
And I just loved Blake Griffin.
Here's and this is when we're talking about the Crimson Quarter. This is one of the reasons that I think it is one of the largest online communities for Oklahoma fans on the internet, is because of threads like this. Because then you have everybody chiming in. And beat Texas Carl, who is a resident. He's a sweet old man, Carrie says. I don't know about that. I think it's a little bit of a troll. But all my hero is past. I call him Dad. Well, thank you, Beat Texas Carl. We'll remember that on Father's Day when somebody wins the U.S. Open this year.
Yeah, my dad always gets, what number was he? That's a good response.
People just climbing in to give somebody shit. That's what the Crimson Quarter's all about. Thank you, Chainsaw Massacre.
I get shit from my dad every once in a while because, people ask me, like, who's your favorite OU football player of all time? And I'll say somebody. And my dad played at OU. Sure. And I never say my dad. And they're like, well, how come you didn't pick your dad? I'm like, well, he was a walk-on. Didn't play a whole lot. But
you only get excited for the guys that were all Americans.
Yeah, and my dad would agree with that.
That's the standard.
Yeah, he was like, I don't blame you.
I don't blame you either. I'm trying to think. The Hollis Price, and you say Kevin Bookout. When I was growing up, Casey Bookout, who played first base for Oklahoma, the baseball team.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like Little League Eddie, that was like going to watch, basically Babe Ruth to a certain extent.
I love Tony Crocker too. Tony Crocker was
sick.
Yeah.
Do you like the sleeves?
Oh yeah,
I bet you wore sleeves.
I had his jersey when I was a kid, and then I would wear arm sleeves. I wouldn't have the long sleeves he did, but I would wear the arm sleeve just like he did.
Corey Brewer was another one that growing up was like, damn, that's my guy.
Yeah. Those teams in
running around throwing the Omega up in the front yard.
06 to like 09, those were the teams that I really fell in love with.
They were, but you know what they also did? They were really damn good too.
Yeah.
They were really competitive and making NCAA tournaments. Hopefully there's going to be some kids out there that are trying to emulate Jeremiah Fears.
Well, and I was telling you, maybe he becomes an OU legend and OU goes on a little run here in the tournament. It'd be pretty awesome.
Certainly has that opportunity, or we think he'll have that opportunity here moving forward. So pretty cool. Those were some good memories there with Hollis Price, and really cool on him. I mean, he's in the middle of, basically the end of the season, I would imagine, or the Big 12 tournament.
Quantas White just got a head coaching job.
Louisiana. Yeah.
So
it's pretty cool. Pretty cool for them. And Houston with a big game on Friday evening against BYU. That'll be kind of interesting to see how that goes. So, all right, that was good. That was a good installment of Around the Corner. We're going to probably try to do this. I think Friday's working out pretty well for everybody.
Yep, good wrap
so,
up.
it's kind of a good wrap up for the week. We could talk about some of the scrimmage stuff. We do go in, a little bit of a scheduling note. We do go into next week. Oklahoma's on spring break.
Yep.
So there is no football practice and things like that. It's obviously going to be very intensive on the diamonds, plural, as well as the hardwood with OU men probably headed out somewhere for the NCAA tournament. And then Jenny Baranchek and crew getting ready to host coming up next week.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun next week with hoops and obviously the diamond sports. And I don't think OU football is back in practice till Tuesday, March 25th, I think.
That would be right, I believe.
It's right after spring break.
Yeah,
So they're on spring break.
Okay, very good. George Stoya, Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel next time. Bye-bye.